What kind of evidence or preparation makes the biggest difference in building a strong defensive asylum claim?
The way I see it as an attorney who litigates these claims is you kind of have two audiences. One audience is going to be the immigration court, so the immigration judge, and the other audience is actually going to be the ICE trial attorney, kind of the person serving the role of a prosecutor in immigration court. And so you're really speaking to both of them. So the first and most important piece of evidence is our own words. So somebody's testimony, somebody's ability to tell their own story is absolutely evidence. And in fact, the Immigration and Nationality Act allows immigration judges to approve asylum claims based on credible testimony only. That doesn't mean it's a good idea to only go in with testimony, but when you talk about the most impactful evidence, I think it starts with testimony. And so what you really want to make sure is that you get well-versed and practiced in telling your story. You are very likely to see your asylum application denied if you do not come across as credible. So for me, as a practicing immigration attorney, whether you're in front of the immigration court or even in front of the USCIS asylum office, you've got to be able to tell that story and tell it in a believable way. Now, after that, there's still several other categories of evidence. The first would be what we call direct evidence. If you were harmed in your country of origin, or if you were arrested, or if you filed police reports, or if you've received treatment from a hospital, we would want proof of that. So pictures of your injuries, receipts or medical reports from the hospital, copies of the police report if you filed a police report. I've had clients from some countries where they've been cited and called into interviews with law enforcement to investigate them specifically for their political activities. I want copies of those citations and copies of those appointment notices so that we can present that. If you have been accused unjustly of a crime in your country, we want that court paperwork. That's what we would refer to kind of as direct evidence that speaks directly to the experience that you endured in your country of origin. But there's also a lot of indirect evidence that helps a lot. And that's really where an attorney, I think, does a lot of their work. Whether you have direct evidence or not is going to kind of come down to you as an individual who's applying for asylum. But a lot of individuals who don't have a lot of experience with it may have a little bit more difficulty finding what we call indirect evidence. And that's going to be things like country condition reports published by credible government agencies. The U.S. Department of State, for example, collects human rights reports. The CIA maintains what they call a fact book. You can go to universities, you can go to newspapers and other journalist organizations and obtain information so that you can show that other people who are similarly situated to you have gone through the same thing in your country of origin. That evidence is extremely important because it adds to your credibility and it shows that you're not alone, that this wasn't some type of one-off thing. And then the final type of evidence is what I call expert or professional evidence. And what that might be is, if you go visit that psychologist that we advise you to visit, for example, it might be a psychological eval that we include that shows that you've actually been diagnosed with something like post-traumatic stress disorder or some other type of anxiety disorder based on the abuse that you suffered. It could be a PhD or an academic who studies the situation in your country of origin, who publishes reports and who is able to take the time to look over your specific case and talk about how the things that you've gone through fit into the wider experience of people coming from your country of origin. But in a lot of cases, it's extremely important. And I have seen cases where that psychological evaluation or that expert witness have been the difference between winning or losing.